This is Benedict Fokker again. This is part 2 to my series on longlivethegamer.com, which is an idea I had that came to me while I was reading some guys on 8chan talking about different things we could do in terms of creating our own media, our own community-run games journalism. And just to reiterate, the idea here is that Gamergate has been going on for 2 months now, and what's the direction? You know, where is it going? How is this going to end? And a lot of people have had the idea of taking this in a direction where, you know, the only end consequence of this is that we have our own new media, you know, our own gamer-run media. We walk away from the old media. We let them simmer in their own juices. We continue and press forward and make a media that's better than anything we've had before, because I think gamers are creative and persistent, and the idea of, you know, not just a new media that's more gamer or Gamergate friendly, but a media that we actually control is the only way to go at this point. So this video is a little more dry. This is more of a kind of theoretical, conceptual overview of some of the ideas that have come out of the discussions we've been having that I want to share. This is, I want you to imagine that there's this website called longlivethegamer.com, and that this would be our community's, one of our new destinations we would go to see gaming news, reviews, opinions, just to get informed about games and share our love for games. And in this website, it's going to work differently than traditional sites. I mean, you can compare it to any traditional media site in that, you know, it has reviews, it has scores, it has news and stuff, but the whole thing is community run. There aren't even going to really be editors who manage the content. But at the same time, I'm aiming for something that is not just a feed or a forum or something like that. So I want you to listen kind of to this technical discussion about how an actually community-run community would work. And a couple of these ideas I got straight out of 8chan, brilliant ideas, and a couple I thought of myself I've been thinking about for many years, just going online to forums and stuff. And I want you to think about what I'm describing here and put it all together and imagine if this could be possible and if this is a kind of community you'd want to participate in. Because I think for sure if enough of us want to do something like this, we absolutely could. And that's what's exciting about it. That's what has drove me to make these videos. There is going to be a part 3 video, and the gist of it is going to be about, you know, like how we could actually pull this off. And I'm going to talk about like who would own this community and that kind of thing. But for now, this is just sort of a technical discussion of how it would work. So let me describe the site itself. It has admins that run it, you know, people, programmers, artists that contribute to the look and design of the site. So, you know, hopefully it does have more of a professional look of sorts. It's not just a vanilla image board or something. It would be a good-looking site that's that displays content in a way that's exciting and, you know, up to professional standards. But the content on the site would all come from the community. So everything like reviews and news and opinion, you know, think about all the YouTubers, the bloggers, just comments from community boards, and even links to other professional sites, including the games pros, formerly known as journalists, and then presumably you could link through an archive link to those guys. But you know, the content is coming from the web. It's coming from the community. The site is just a place to display the content. But the design of the site makes it so that the best quality content in particular, the most personally relevant content bubbles to the top. So you're not, you're not searching through a bunch of links. It's like going to a professional site with an editor that puts the most interesting stories at the top, except it'll be even more interesting because the design will allow for personalization of content delivery. The community itself will make the inputs that are going to be used to calculate what is or isn't relevant. And so just by participating, just by like consuming the content and going to the website and upvoting stuff and just clicking on things, you are contributing to that organization. Now, the design is meant to be revolutionary. This is meant to be a totally new thing in all of media. I mean, you could make a regular news site that worked this way, or you could make a movie site or like a sports site that worked this way. I'm not sure. I mean, I've seen stuff that's similar, but I don't think I've ever seen anything that's as comprehensively just purely community run as what I'm describing here. And I think games is the perfect place to do it. But as much as I'm excited about doing something revolutionary, I just want to, a way out of this Gamergate situation. And I want not only a way out, but I want it to be, kick ass. So that's what this is about. If you think about traditional journalism, it actually has this problem of, it has a couple of problems. First, journalists themselves have agendas. So even if they don't have like a specific agenda, they belong to cliques, or even if they don't, they still have their own viewpoint, and everything has to be filtered through their viewpoint, because there's this whole infrastructure of like going to journalism school and having like editors and having, a bank that funds the organization, having a building where everybody works, having printing presses that you own, having publishers, having delivery people. Even when there's websites, you have a similar kind of situation where everything is channelized, and it does put relevant, good content, out on the forefront, on the front of the website or on the first page of the newspaper. But that channel kind of blocks new or unusual content from working its way in. And that's the problem. I think if we fix, we'll have something better than what we ever had. Anyway, that talk maybe was really interesting to you, or maybe it was really boring. But the point is that we can make a website that has all the content about games that we want, news that we care to hear, opinions that matter to us, and review scores that actually reflect our interests, and a community that has substantive discussions, not just, flame wars or whatever. Anyway, that sounds like magic. It's not, because the how of this idea is really the why. I would never be talking about this if I hadn't had this spark of an idea of how to make this work. And so let me tell you that story. I was reading on 8chan about someone had this idea. I don't remember the context, but they threw it out. They were talking about a certain review score aggregate website that people have criticized a lot lately. And he suggested, why don't we make our own aggregate that has custom weighting, so that sites like, Polygon, that, give a game a less score that was fun because of political reasons. What if we could weight that site less because we don't trust it as much? So he was thinking more of like a Gamergate aggregate score, review score system. And then another Anon proposed a system like OkCupid, where users fill out a profile and answer questions, and based on everybody's different preferences, it matches you into like little groups automatically, and then that matching system would provide a personalized weighting for a review score. So that was their chain of thought, and I don't know if they've done anything with it, but it definitely inspired me. And so I came up with this idea of longlivethegamers.com. And the whole idea is that the site organizes content based off of two things. The first is user characteristics, and the second is context. Now, I'll talk about context later when I talk about the community boards. Right now, I'll talk about this idea of user characteristics. This is exactly what it sounds like. Every user is unique. You fill out a profile, you answer fun little questions like OkCupid. You know, the community develops, they submit questions, and then you answer them. And all the website does is it keeps track of everybody's answers. So let me say now that, again, the site would be as professional as possible in terms of site design. And so there would be a lot of programming hard-coded into the site at a lower level, so that for the users of the site, most of this process is transparent and easy to use, and a lot of the more complicated matching occurs, you know, behind the back in the background. So just keep that in mind. If what I talk about starts to sound convoluted, keep in mind that the goal is to deliver a very streamlined experience to every user. So every user will, over time, develop a personalized profile by answering these questions, and also by, you know, what links they click on, which other users they favorite, how they vote up or down on things. You know, at some point, over time, we would develop a matching system, a weighting system, and obviously that can be tweaked over time. And designing in the first place would be kind of hard, but certainly not anything that's never been done before. That's just completely undoable. So you can see how that would work. You can see how the site could get a sense of, based on what your activity is, kind of what other users you're better matched with. And so it's important to point out that everything on this site would be user-based. And so when I say user, I just mean your personal profile, but it's important to keep in mind that everybody is a user. So the admins are users. The reviewers will be attached to a user profile. Even external organizations will kind of be attached to a user profile. And so every user is a node, and the nodes are used to compare or match with other nodes. And that's how all of the weighting works. And so this affects news, reviews, and opinion because everything's matched on this system. So let's talk about matching, just so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. Let's say one of the questions that somebody submits is, you know, what's your favorite genre? First-person shooter, real-time strategy, role-playing game. Let's say those are the only three they include for some reason in their question. Answering this question will do a lot more than what you think. Because if you think about it, today we do have a lot of great sites out there. You could make a subreddit called FPS Lovers. And if you love first-person shooters, you can go there and look for content that's interesting to you. The reason why longlivethegamer.com would be better is because everybody is sharing content with everybody else. So to give you an example of this, think of the game Skyrim. It's clearly an RPG, but it also has a pretty casual interface. It's very popular on consoles, and it's basically a first-person action game. So it's a game that has been popular with gamers that aren't really RPG people, and maybe they're more like first-person shooter people. So RPG guys, on the other hand, they might like Skyrim, but they'll have a lot more bones to pick with it than first-person shooter guys would. So if the system knows you're a first-person shooter guy, it'll look at reviewers who match you better, and it'll match you up with them. And the types of reviews you would see would tell you, and a weighted score associated with that would tell you something like, well, so guys, even though this is an RPG, it's still fun. That might be how a first-person shooter player thinks about Skyrim. For an RPG lover, on the other hand, they would see reviews that are more like, hey, this is a great game, but it's lacking some elements from the series that we wish hadn't been removed. So that's just a taste of of how matching and personalized preferences would give you a different a different outcome in terms of what content rises to the top of visibility for you. So I guess you see how that works. So let's talk about reviews specifically now and how this system would work. It's not this thing like that one website we know, okay, Metacritic.com. It's not like that where the admins or the site moderators pick an overall score from every review on the internet, and they just kind of have to guess sometimes. All reviews are submitted by users. And I don't mean that it's all user reviews. I mean anybody who's a user can create, I guess, what I would call a review profile, where they take some source. So it could be a YouTube video or a link to a major website, or maybe just a comment that same person made on the community forum. And they take that and they attach it to the review profile. So what they're saying is, this isn't my personal opinion of this game. I'm just inputting this reviewer's opinion, but I'm the one that's that's setting the overall score that I think that this reviewer's giving. So there would always be a default or like an overall score slider, 1 to 10. Okay. And the review profile, the person making it, would watch a YouTube video, and maybe at the end of the video somebody says, so I give this game an 8 out of 10. So the guy creating the review profile, or the girl creating it, would select 8 out of 10. Now they could also add additional sliders, and these are attach additional score sliders, and these would be named by the community. Like there would be a hashtag like graphics, and so you could create a graphics slider, or maybe somebody else already has, so you'll just select it and you'll attach it. And maybe you're watching this YouTube video and they say, okay, this is a great game, 8 out of 10, but the graphics were not so hot. So what does not so hot mean in terms of 1 to 10? Well, this is where the subjectivity of the person submitting the review profile comes into play. 8 out of 10 for overall, that was easy, but they're going to maybe go with not so great, not so hot. That sounds like a 4 out of 10. So they'll slide down to 4 out of 10 on graphics, and it's just their kind of subjective take on it. And then they'll submit the review profile. So what this does is it creates a distinct review profile that's associated with the user that created it. And it also links a game, because you have to type in, there's a tag, like a hashtag or whatever, associated with the game in question that's being reviewed. And then it also links to a couple of score sliders. So you could pull up a screen that's all of the graphics scores. Everything that has a graphics slider that's been scored, pull it up, and you can look at all the games in the world based off of how the community is, scoring their graphics. And then you can tag the profile, like you can say this is a YouTube review, or this is a pro media review, or this is a user review. So you can tag it however you want. And the way this works is you actually rate review profiles based on how accurate you think they are. So if somebody links a YouTube video and it clearly says 8 out of 10 and they did an overall score of 1 out of 10, then you'll just downvote, just bomb that review profile, and that will start to affect the user who created it. It'll start to affect their weight in the community and how influential they are. And like I said, everything's based off of matching. So it's not like there's this universal variable of credibility for users creating these review profiles. It's more like the types of users that you're more matched with, including credibility, that kind of determines how relevant their review profiles are to you. So I think you see how that would work. And then now what you have is you'll have a dashboard where you have aggregates, and aggregates themselves are created by the community. And what I mean by that is, anybody can open up the aggregate creation page, and there'll be simple checkboxes and things, drag and drop type features where you you pick your favorite users, or you pick your favorite tags, or you say tags that you don't like, or you pick users that you don't like, and maybe there's a couple sliders of some kind. And what that does is that makes it so that the system will then use what you created there and like use it to help generate a weighting algorithm. It'll use a weighting algorithm to assign weights to different users and different review profiles, and it'll come up with what it thinks are the most relevant reviews to you or to that aggregate that you've created. Because it's not going to look at you in this case; it'll just look at what you've created, and then it'll give you a weighted score. So let's say you make an aggregate. Let's just say you call it Gamergate, and let's say your philosophy is, I just want a review aggregate that totally ignores all of the games media formerly known as journalists. All those sites that are on Games Journos Pro, they just get ignored, but everything else gets included. So you just basically you take Kotaku and Polygon and stuff, and you put them in the I don't like these reviewers part of the dialogue there, and you click save and you call it Gamergate, and then what it'll do is it'll appear as a big tile on your dashboard in your review tab or whatever, or the review section of the website. And what you can do, a couple of things. If you just leave it blank, it'll show you a list of how the top scoring games are scored according to that weight. Or you can click on a specific game and it'll tell you that game's overall score, the aggregate score, using the weighting system that you've developed, and all of the review profiles that have been submitted by the community. And it'll also figure out like the top 5 reviews that are relevant to how you've set up that aggregate. So, maybe there'll be a couple YouTube users that for some reason are like at the polar opposite of the matching spectrum from Kotaku, and it'll show a link to their reviews. So I think you see how this works. There would be, maybe the site would have a built-in aggregate that's personalized to you, and it'll use a built-in algorithm that sort of guesses what is most relevant to your profile. And then there might be a raw aggregate that's just, maybe worthless, but maybe people would be interested in it. That's just sort of like a raw average of everything everybody's ever submitted. But everything else would be these community-generated aggregates, and they would all be named something. There might be one that tries to be neutral. Like, let's call it Gamer Meta. Well, maybe the Gamer Meta aggregate is trying to be neutral, but it's just, neutrality is maybe not a thing that's real in real life, but maybe the people creating this will do their best. And as a result, even though it's not perfect, a lot of people will trust the Gamer Meta aggregate, and they'll attach it to their dashboard just to sort of compare it to their own personalized aggregates. Maybe there'll be like an RPG lovers aggregate and stuff like that. So I think you see how that would work. I definitely think that would be fun. I would have a good time creating my own aggregates. I would have fun searching and viewing other people's aggregates. And it would just be really interesting to me, especially if I was like having a hard time picking a game. I could, to buy, like, let's say there's a game that comes out, Assassin's Creed 5, right? I like Assassin's Creed, but is this new one, like, do I really want to play it? Like, is it really something new enough? Or do I want to buy something else with my limited money? And I can maybe search for some aggregates that I don't normally look at just because I'm really trying to investigate whether it's good. Like, maybe there's a completionist aggregate. I don't know, because the community can submit their own user reviews, right? And instead of just all of the user reviews that ever have been submitted, you can pick a couple of, maybe there's some guy out there that submits a bunch of user reviews based off of completionism. Like, is this game good for completionists or does it suck for completionists? And maybe there's like a little community of 10 or 20 people that are involved with that, and they create their own aggregate, and you can look it up and like, I don't know. Do you see how this would work and why it'd be pretty awesome and like way better than what we have right now? And it would also mean that the corporate games media can't control the narrative, like at all. Like major corporations and developers would be forced to like actually acknowledge and deal with the opinions coming out of the community. Which is just a lovely thought. So the next section you would have is news. And news, your goal is to have a clean looking dashboard in your news section that is that presents information, in a visually appealing way that's relevant, that that you're addicted to go read this news section every day because what's popping up on it is interesting to you like all the time. This section would work a lot like reviews, in that users would create their own personal feeds, and they name them, or maybe not. Maybe they would just create their own feeds. And what I mean by that is, you have your personal news feed where you attach links to YouTubes, to sites, to community posts, same as the reviews. This time though, there's no scores attached. It's just, you just throw it in there. You read something interesting on the internet, you link it to your feed, okay? Now, these are individual feeds, and you can put them on your dashboard. Imagine like 6 tiles on the front of this dashboard, and each tile contains a feed of these links. And the links could have pictures attached. It can still be visually interesting, and maybe you can customize how it looks visually, but I think you see how it would work from an information point of view. Now, where the power of the site and that matching algorithm comes in is you would have aggregate feeds, where somebody would create a feed like called Best WoW News, and they would attach, when they're creating that feed, they'll click a button that says create new feed, and then a dialog comes up, and it's all user friendly. They would select or type in their top 5 or top 10 favorite users who have their own news feeds that seem to always be all about WoW stuff. So then it would do a matching algorithm and kind of not just randomly pick and choose links from these guys' feeds, although it would do that. It would significantly pay attention to these guys' feeds and pull links from them. But it would also look at who these people are matched with, and maybe find, maybe randomly from time to time say, hey, these guys are matched with these other users that seem to be in like a different cluster slightly, but I'm going to pull from their news feeds just to see what happens. And so you might end up getting like news stories that aren't about WoW, but because of the matching algorithm, it ends up being interesting to people who love WoW, because it's pulling it from users that are like linked to people who like WoW. Do you get what I mean by that? And the algorithm can do different stuff. Like maybe within the feed, there's upvoting and downvoting, and that'll help it over time know how to create this feed better. One idea I had was when you create a feed, there's a slider, and the slider says, on one end of it, it says, only pay attention to how I've set up this feed. And on the other side of it, it says, evolve over time based off of user preference. So if you want a feed to like always just be attached to the original users you set it up with so that it's very consistent, you can keep the slider over there. Or if you want to sort of get the feed going, and so you attach it to a couple users, but mostly it's like a community thing that you guys are sharing, you would want the slider on the other end, because as you upvote and downvote stories over time, the feed will start, rematching to other clusters of users to try and like hone in on what it is, what what clusters within the community that the people watching that feed are most interested in, and it'll pull news from their individual user feeds. So that's how that would work. And then, so again, on your dashboard with your tiles, you can have, if you want, you can have, just some individual users manually created personal feed if they're a popular person. But you could also have like these aggregate feeds, which are somewhat automated and do a really good job of pulling information from sources that you might not normally know about. And maybe you don't even know about them, but they're very relevant to you. And so that's how that would work. And it's using the same matching system that the review system uses. It's displaying information. So that's how that would work. Now, the opinion section is, I think, more related to how the community forum would work, in that its opinions are more like discussions, right? They're not like a one-time, one-hit event like a news story would be. On the other hand, opinions are a little bit different than community discussion, because usually opinions are polarizing. There's like a debate that follows. So I sort of see the opinion page as a mix of what the news section does and what the community forum section does. It's just presented in a cleaner, specific visual format that's conducive to following a debate, and what have you. So I'm not going to really talk about that a lot. That's not a conceptual thing so much as it's a design thing, and this video is about the concept. So finally, I'm going to talk about community, and I know this is a long video now, and you've got the overall gist, the main point of how the site would work, but I have an idea that would revolutionize discussion forums as well, and I typed this up and I could talk about it for another half hour, and I'm not. I won't. I'll just explain how it works, and hopefully you can think about it and figure it out. And if people are interested, honestly, in what I'm saying today, I can definitely talk more about it. But the idea with the community is, I think one thing that I don't like about discussion forums is context. Originally, your threaded forum is this sort of free-for-all, and it all depends on who's posting in what order at what time. Some places like Reddit have tried to make this situation better, but I don't like Reddit because everything is kind of based off of this upvoting and downvoting, and the problem with that is that it becomes this matter of popularity, and I don't know what popularity means. Is it, did the user make a bad argument? Is that why you downvoted? Or do you dislike the user? Or did he make a good argument but you disagree with it and that's why you downvoted? There's no standard, there's no context for what popularity means. And then internet is an anonymous space, so you don't even know what the other person is thinking when they vote and stuff. So I don't like that system. So here's what I propose, and it's I call it context tagging, and think about a hashtag system. And every website has tags, but a context tag, I would see it as being a little bit more substantial, like maybe like a whole sentence or two. I mean, there'd definitely be a character limit, but something more than just a few words. Like you could actually type out a sentence to tag what's going on in a post if you need to or if you want. It could just be a word or a few numbers if you want. But an example of this is a post about Gamergate. You could tag it with a tag that says "Overview of Gamergate from an ethics perspective," and then other people could reuse that tag once you tag it. And then the way this works is posts are linked together by linking tags. So you're not linking posts together or threading posts. All the information is kept track of by links between individual tags that are tagged to posts. So if we wanted this to work like a traditional threaded discussion forum, And there could be, there could be a dialog box at the bottom of every post when you're looking at it, so it works and looks the same like a traditional forum. But the way that the tag would be formatted in a traditional sense is, okay, so every post you make would automatically be tagged with the post ID number. And then you can add more tags. You can add as many tags as you want. And in fact, any user can add any tag to a post. And then, to keep it clean, I guess visually the default would be the tags would be smaller font at the bottom of the post, and maybe the top 3 would be shown at any given time. And then and then you can expand it out and look at all the tags that have been attached to that post, and you vote on them how relevant you think they are to the post. And so the top tags that are most relevant to the post, according to the community, end up rising to the top, and so they're more visible. But that's all it affects, I guess, is visibility, maybe. But anyway, in a traditional sense, what you'd have is if you type a reply into the dialog box and click reply, the system would automatically generate a link that would be formatted like this. It would be the post ID of the original post, which is an automatic tag, and the link would be called reply, and then the other tag would be the post ID of the post that is the reply. And then, so tags themselves can be user defined. The links are not user defined. The links would be generated by the site designers. There might be like 8 of them. And so just to give you a sense of some of these links that would exist besides just merely reply, you have like agree, and agree would, or disagree. And the reason why that's interesting is because if you want to look at the overall discussion, you can expand out, and this is a tougher design issue, but if it could be implemented, it would be really neat. You could expand out a discussion based off of these links, and so you could see sort of a visual link tree of all the agrees and the disagrees and how they're connected. So you could actually follow a discussion, based off of a point-to-point basis, rather than just this random like who happened to reply at what times and that kind of thing. And then another neat thing that could be a consequence of this is if you create a link, you can pull up everything that's under that link. So let's say someone creates a tag that's called Destiny is great, and then somebody links a post to it that disagrees. So the format of this link would be Destiny is great, disagree, Destiny sucks. So you could pull up the tag Destiny is great, select the link disagree, and then you can see all of the posts that anyone has made that are linked in that way. And when you have it up like that, you can actually vote on relevance. And in the case of disagree, relevance means what's the best argument against Destiny is great, right? In the context of reply, it's a more neutral thing. Relevance might just be what's the most popular reply. So you see with these links, you're not dealing with popularity. Upvoting something has context depending on what the link is. And then there could be a thing where if you've linked an agree post to something, you can't vote in the disagree section, so you can't like troll the other side of the argument and downvote their good arguments and stuff. And then the other neat thing is because links are between tags and not posts, you can actually link 2 posts in multiple ways. So you could say like Destiny is great, disagree, Destiny sucks, and then maybe that post that said Destiny is great, maybe it was a review someone wrote, and in the review they said, I really liked the gameplay. I really liked the gameplay. I really liked the graphics. So someone could put a tag on that post that says Destiny has good graphics. So you could say Destiny is great, disagree, Destiny sucks, but then your same post that's a bad review of Destiny, which happens to say, well, this game sucks, the story sucks, but the graphics were good, you could actually link to the tag in the first post that says Destiny has good graphics, and you could say agree. So that way, all of these different posts, all of these different discussions are organized. And like I said, you can highlight individual tags. You can pull them up, and you can select a link, and so you can get a really contextual point of view, on a certain point, on a certain discussion. And so, it seems like really convoluted, and obviously, you're not going to keep track. No one's going to keep track of the big picture. That's insane. But what you can do is you can go in there, and if you're looking for a particular bit of information, like if you want to know everybody who thinks Destiny's graphics were good, that information would instantly be easy to access. And if you want to make a particular point against somebody's post, it would be very easy to describe the context of your point, because you could create your own tag in that guy's post, link it to your post, and create a tag in your post that describes exactly what you're getting at by replying to that person. You could take a post that you've already created, instead of just creating a redundant reply to somebody else's new post. You created, let's say you created a post 2 months ago, but you think it has information that you want to point out against some new post that somebody made. Well, just make a new tag, make a new link. And the link itself contains the point you're wanting to make. It would describe why you're linking, and then people would see that, they would get the context, and they'd read your post and be like, oh, okay, I see what he's saying. And so I think this is great, because it would make debates a lot better. It would be implemented with the opinion page, and I think the opinion page would be like this intersection between news feed and the discussion board. So I don't know if the user weighting system and this context system can be integrated at all, but that would be pretty cool. I think it would make the users of longlivethegamer.com a lot better debaters, because they could just go to their discussion forums and have instant access to like all the right information in context that they need. No ignorance, no redundant points being made. Just to give you one more example of how robust this system is, one thing that's bugged me about discussion forums, but in particular about traditional journalism, not even games journalism, just journalism in general, is this idea of historical context. Like, have you ever heard a news story and asked, yeah, okay, but whatever happened about blank? Or did I miss something about blank? Or are these guys the only guys reporting on this? Or isn't there another side to this story? Like, I ask questions like that all the time when I watch the news. And the news doesn't do a good job of dealing with those kinds of questions, because for a couple of reasons. First of all, news is about what's going on in the moment. They sort of expect us to keep track of history. But the problem is, the reason why we have journalists is because we don't have time and money to be out on the beat gathering information all on our own. That's why there is news. So it's not like we can also just keep track of and remember everything about history, on our own as well. And anyway, I'm not surprised that it's this way. Not to get down any rabbit holes, but I do think it's easier to manage the consumer and political preferences of a population if context is taken away from their information source. But even though that goes a little bit beyond games, I bring it up because Gamergate really is about this broader issue of like this pipeline of information and trying to control the industry by controlling that pipeline, even if it's against the consumer's demand and desire. So I think having this broader societal problem of historical context concerning information, it's something that we gamers need to solve for ourselves, just so that we can take power back, over the industry that we're the ones paying money to. And I think the discussion forum, if it's set up the way I described, these links do add an element of historical context. So 2 more possible links that could exist. One of them might be a counter. And so a counter is when when somebody writes a post, somebody else disagrees, and you're disagreeing with the disagree, but specifically because you're agreeing with the original post. So like somebody could say Destiny's great, and somebody says I disagree, Destiny sucks because the story sucks, and so it sucks. And then you can disagree to that second post and say, well, I disagree. Destiny does suck, but it's not the story, it's the loot that sucks. So, so you're disagreeing with the disagreeing guy, but you're not disagreeing with his overall point. So, and again, like I said, links are tied to tags, so it'd be obvious what you're disagreeing with, but you could throw in a counter link that says, I disagree that Destiny sucks because I agree with the original post that Destiny is great. You know what I mean? Another link is refers. Refers would be where you're replying to a post, but you're saying that what you have is new information. So and this has to do with historical context. So let's say someone has, let's say someone writes a post about how Kotaku and Polygon are corrupt, and they tag it, games journos are corrupt. And you can add, Gamasutra is also corrupt, and that would be like a reply. Like you're just contributing. You could use the same tag. Game journals are corrupt, and your post is about how Gamasutra is corrupt. So it's all under the same tag of game journals are corrupt. But if you have a new level, like a new part of the story, you would maybe use the refers link, and it would be something like this. Your post would say, hey, a new story came out, and it turns out that Kotaku is even more corrupt than we thought in the first place. Or maybe in, a fantasy world, Kotaku apologizes and is getting better. So that would be like a new development that would modify the context of games journals are corrupt. So you could say games journals are corrupt, refers, games journals are even more corrupt than we thought. And again, it's all controlled by the community. So whatever people decide is an easy way to organize this that works for them, I think they can get a lot of use out of it. I think you get the idea. I've talked about it a lot. This is an industry, games industry. It's all about evolution and making new things, building new things out of old ideas, creating completely brand new ideas. And if we want this industry to reflect what we like as gamers, our discourse as a community needs to have a place for that sort of historical context about this evolution and stuff. Anyway, that's part 2. I hope you followed what I was saying. I'm going to draw some pictures to illustrate this while I'm talking in the video. I hope they're good. I hope they make sense and stuff. And I hope you're excited. I know it was dry, but maybe you get what I'm saying, and because gamers are cool people that are smart, you're visualizing it too, and you're psyched. So please watch the part 3 video. In this video, I'm going to talk about how this can actually be a community that's not just community run, but community owned. And I also want to talk about my plan for actually doing this. I don't think it would be that hard to actually go out there and make this happen. I think we could pull it off pretty easily, all things considered. And I have a couple of really neat ideas, other little things here and there about what this community and this website would be like. Again, it can be called whatever we want, but I came up with this idea of longlivethegamer.com. So just for reference, that's what I'm calling it. And long live the gamer, and down with the stupid, awful games journalists. I'm sorry, games media professionals formerly known as journalists. Thank you for your time. Benedict Fokker, out.